Hey everyone, this is Eric Nielsen from the IBC Finance Team, here to give you our report for 2020. Let me first start with a shout out to our team members. A big thanks goes to Joseph in Aalborg, Denmark, to Joyce in Eindhoven, Netherlands, to Douglas in Sao Paulo, Brazil, to Judith Lynn, our bookkeeper in Frankfurt, and also to Jimmy Martin, our General Secretary in Frankfurt. Thanks to these team members, we were able to present to you what we believe is an accurate reflection of the current financial standings of the IBC, as well as an income and expense report for this 2020 year, which has been shortened because we decided at the last ACM that our financial year would now go from October to September. So although we had a budget for the entire 2020, what you're receiving today is an end-of-year report that now ends at the end of September. So let me begin with our income and expense report. In this chart, you can see what we've received on a month-to-month basis as income on this line here, where we have received a total of 251,315 euros, which reflects 61.8% of what we had hoped to receive by the end of the year. This being the end of September, should have been at 75%. But this has been an unusual year. Our expenses have also been less than expected, and so thankfully our net loss is only 7,661. So the income received from our cooperative program has been able to cover almost all of our regular expenses, but just not quite all of them. Our needed monthly receipts should be at 33,885, but if you take an average of what we have received each month, we reach only about 28,000 euros. And then our monthly income and expenditures look like this in a chart. If you were to take those numbers you just saw and put them in this chart, then you'd see these lines where our average has been in a decline. Our income peaks in January, April, and July, and our expenses, although they aren't exactly a straight line, they are straighter than our income. This is a look at 13 months, so we can go back to see the trends over the year. And in this chart, you can see how our cooperative giving, our churches in the cooperative giving, tend to give on a quarterly basis. And so we see the income peak at the beginning of October, in January, in April, and in July. Again, our expenses are a little bit more regular, other than in December, but this is a look at what our annual receipts look like. And here we have a little bit extra income, gifts received from others outside the convention in the form of unrestricted gifts or bequests, so that helps our bottom line. However, our bottom line is adversely affected this year by the exchange rate loss. Much of our assets are in US dollars, and when the exchange rate is unfavorable, then when we create the final report, we get, this year we get a loss, and so that's why our net income is a total of negative 30,000 euros. In other words, a net loss of 30,600. If we look at our trends, we see here that our budget in previous years has actually been exceeded in 2016 and 2017 because our income was significantly greater than what we had expected to spend. And so we can call these the fat years, where we have been able to accumulate some retained earnings and put money in designated funds especially since our expenditures were also significantly under our receipts. But as you can see in this chart, that by 2018, our receipts had decreased and our expenses had increased. So we did not meet our expected budget in 2018, and the same thing happened in 2019, where now our expenditures have exceeded our income. And in 2020, it is a shortened year. It is only 9 months of the year, that hence the large gap. But even if we projected the income through the end of 2020, we would also be significantly less than our expected budget, unless something drastic were to have happened between now and the end of the year. But what is most concerning is that our expenditures have now exceeded our income, now for a trend of almost 3 years. And so, as you'll see in our budget proposal, our expected receipts for 2021 will be significantly less than we had for 2020, and we will also need to use from our designated funds in the leaner years. And so comes our balance statement, which shows first of all our current assets and our fixed assets. You'll see here our bank accounts and the significant amount that is in our IBC endowment fund. And then we have just a few minor accounts receivable. We have our loans receivable from our churches who have borrowed from the IBC, and then our fixed assets, which is essentially our building in Amdachsberg in Frankfurt. So total assets of just over 3.9 million euro. Our liabilities show some accounts payable and a few other accruals and payables, as well as our pastor relocation funds that churches have paid to the IBC, which will then be due to the pastor upon their departure from these churches. So we have pastor relocation funds as a significant part of our total liabilities. And in our equity, much of it is our designated funds that each of the strategy coordinators have the say over. And you'll see here the designated funds that they are responsible for. And then we have a number of other funds that are really belonging to the IBC, but they've also been restricted to a use that has been determined by the IBC. So that's why they are here as equity on our balance sheet. And total liabilities and equity is also 3.9 million euros, which equals the same amount in our assets. And usable cash, we use this so that we can see which of our accounts hold available funds versus restricted funds. And as you can see in this table, much of our assets are held in restricted funds, loan accounts, and the endowment fund, which leaves basically a liquid amount of 679,000 and usable cash of 157,000. This year we can also report that there have been some applications for the IBC Endowment Fund, specifically in Category 3, which is matching grants for minor repairs. And we did award to Aviano Baptist Church, as they had requested, a fund grant of US dollars 22,000, and the North Sea Baptist Church in Norway of just under 10,000 euros to match what they had raised for their own repair of their buildings. So that's the finance report, and we hope also that you will approve that finance report when it comes time to vote on it. If there are any questions, of course, you can ask during the discussion time. At this time, I'd like to present our budget proposal for 2020-21, and this is for the year that begins October 1st of this year and will continue to September 30th of next year. So when we formulate a budget proposal, we take the requests that come from our core strategy directors, where they have requested funds based on the activities that they're planning, which is based, of course, on their vision for what the IBC should be doing. And so we take those requests and we try to make sure that those requests can be fulfilled. But we also have to temper those requests with what we can also expect to be realistic from our cooperative program, the program where our churches contribute to. And so during this time of budget preparation, we had looked into designated funds that could also be utilized, and we looked into retained earnings that could be used as a method to use what we have received in our fat years to be able to finance what we expect to be a lean year in this next budget cycle. And so what you see here is our main expenses of our core strategy directors, and you can see two columns. One column where we expect to fund it through our cooperative program, that is the 2021 budget, and then parts of the request that will then be funded instead through our designated funds. And you can see in this proposal where the funds will come from if we expect them to come from our designated funds. So for example, here our director travel, the total amount that our director expects to spend is $12,900, but 6,000 of that will come from the designated fund called New Work. And so on it goes down each of the rows. You have a column for what we need to raise through our cooperative program, and then the funds we will use that are already in the IBC's designated funds or retained earnings. Or in this case here, our residency program, they intend to make an application for an additional $25,000 from the IBC endowment fund, and that's why what they expect to spend of $25,000 will come from the IBC endowment fund, whose application will hopefully be approved as well. Our other expenses are, of course, our convention staff, and this being a little unusual of a year because we have two general secretaries for 3 months of this financial year. Jimmy will continue through the end of December, and Tim has already begun. And so what we have done is we're making a recommendation that Tim's salary package will come from our budget, but Jimmy's salary package for these last 3 months of his service will come from our retained earnings. And so this is, of course, one of the larger portions of our budget, but in order for us to have a convention, we also need staff members, and so this is what the expected expenses look like for our staff salaries and other expenses. And then we have several other expenses that are also in our budget. The things to note here are that we do also have some significant repairs to our building that we have to make due to some damage this year, and 25,000 euros we also hope to take out of our retained earnings in order to pay for those repairs. We do have other expenses here, and one of the things we'll ask you to vote on has to do with the fact that our GS Search Committee did not use all of the funds that they were designated, and so we intend to realign or reapply those funds, reassign those funds to different expenses, but also related to having a new GS. And so those funds of approximately 4,200 euros we would like to reassign to two other categories. And so in order for us to be able to propose this budget and for you to vote on it, you first have to vote on making that change. That'll be presented in just a moment. But so as you can see here, our total that we need of our cooperative program to cover is just around 363,000 euros, and we intend to cover the remaining expenses through our designated funds and through our retained earnings and through our IBC endowment fund grants, and that totals 155,000. So we hope that the 363,000 needed to be raised in the cooperative program will be a goal that our churches can meet. You've seen in the previous charts the declining receipts, so we do hope that this amount is a realistic goal for us and that we will be able to meet this goal through the support of our churches. So when it comes time to vote, we hope to have you approve the following three items. First, to reassign some unused General Secretary Search designated funds. 4,200 euros is still remaining in the amount, or just over, and we'd like to reassign 2,200 of it to our new GS transition, and 2,000 of it to our ACM celebration, which should have happened this year, but as you know, it didn't happen this year. We hope to still have it next year though, and then to bring Jimmy and Lori over, an expense that we wouldn't have needed this year, but that we do need for next year. And then we hope that with that change, then that you would approve this budget recommendation. And finally, the auditor's reports findings that you've also received in your book of reports, we hope that you will vote to accept those as well. So that's all from our finance team. Thanks for your support. We also hope that you read the reports that we send out once a quarter that include the amounts that we are receiving from each of the churches. We ask that you check that the amounts we receive are the same amounts that you have recorded in your financial statements of what you're giving to the IBC, just to make sure that what you are giving really does reach the IBC, and that if there are any errors or mistakes, or they've been misdesignated, then you let us know. But that's our report. We hope that you will accept it, and thanks for your continued support of the IBC.